was it 97, 98? You were in Charlie Battery?
I got there in '99 and went to HHB in '01, I think.
Oh, so 99 you were there. So I was your platoon sergeant for at least a little while. Me
No,
and
you were at.
Lutz.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I was. Luce was my platoon sergeant, and then I don't think that you were over HHB while I was there. We had God, well, I don't remember all their names, man. Luce was my first one, and then I forgot what the other guy's name was. Um, I can't remember his name. His name is drawing a blank.
Oh yeah, oh
It-
yeah. Look, those were storied times back then, right? You were a brand new private in the army.
yeah, yeah. And are we live yet? Oh, yep, we are live.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry about that. I thought we were
yeah.
still doing mic checks. Yes, I was brand new private in the army. Came in '98, and then and then did my basic out of Fort Sill, which was very interesting. I went in there when I was 17, and then when I got to basic, it was just before 4th of July. So so we went in there, did the zero day, got smoked and everything, and our hell week, and then went to and by that time we only had one or two drill sergeants there because it was the 4th of July weekend, and then we stayed there for that week after 4th of July, and then that following Monday everybody else came in. So like we only had about a platoon, maybe half a platoon of people there at five at what was the place? Alpha First of the 22nd in Fort Sill, and then so we got smoked at the beginning, and then everybody else showed up the week after that, and we had to go live through that whole 0 week all over again, and it wasn't fun. Um, yeah, that's about really shit. All pretty much all I can remember about basic. I just wanted to make it through. Um,
Yeah,
uh,
and it's wild how those times like kind of they were so vibrant in the moment, but later on it's like it's just a kind of a fog almost, you know.
yeah, thinking back at it, I keep thinking about different things. I mean, there was a bunch of people who went to AIT with me that was in that platoon or in that unit with me, but as far as the content goes, I don't really remember much. Uh, I had some really good drill instructors. One I ended up running into back at Bragg, which was kind of funny because he didn't really recognize me, but he recognized me as one of his old privates. And I was coming back from the field, and I was riding in the passenger side of then Captain Boyer's command truck. Me and I think it was Sergeant Klein at the time. Um, uh, Sergeant Klein, he was a Sierra. I can't remember his first name. He's on my friends on Facebook. I'm terrible at names. But I look over and I recognize the car because he had like a Mitsubishi Eclipse, like a purple shiny Mitsubishi Eclipse, and I was just like staring at it, and then like the window rolled down, and I just see this head popped out. He's like, "Were you one of my privates?" And I was like, and he was like, "Good to see you again, airborne," and then we took off. But it was a very interesting time. Um, Other memories of basic, yeah, not much. I remember just I caught some different sayings that people said that I probably won't say on the air, but just different things that people said back in the day at basic that I kind of still use today. Um, Left there, and I was later on. I ended up finding out that I was probably that we came in to AIT. I was class 52298. Came into AIT at was it Charlie 256, and and it was later on found out that we were probably the first or second year after they moved from I guess it's called the Hill down to Main Post. and it was pretty interesting. We got there. We were on night shift, so we got to we would go in, do our classes starting about 1800, and then we would go to about 06, and then stumble into PT, do our PT, then head to bed whenever everybody else was getting ready to go do their day. And yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't remember a lot of that about what. I mean, I remember what we did. Like, we went and did old LizDiz. We don't do LizDiz anymore. Never saw LizDiz after AIT. That's the old radar before the Sentinel, and then we did Sentinel training and all the other
Yeah.
different 14 golf stuff back when it was 14 Juliet back then, and those were the good days. I still see a couple people from AIT. Nobody ended up coming to brag from my class. They all went to uh, Fort. Most of them went to Fort Hood and then Germany and a couple other places. But I did run into a few people in the civilian world after they got out, and I found out that one of the guys from my class is just got through retiring and moved to Huntsville. So um, I'm going to link up with him sometime because supposedly he don't live but maybe 20 minutes away from me. So that'd be pretty cool. And, and then
So tell me about this taco thing. Tell me about this taco thing I see on here. What is that? That's the first I've heard about that. Is that your nickname?
That's a very good nickname. I love it. It's been holding on for years, and it was official for a while. And I'll talk about the official thing here in a little bit. So taco, what it was I love Taco Bell. I love Mexican food. I know some people I say Taco Bell Mexican food the same sentence and people freak out, but I love Taco Bell. And and so I would eat it as a lot. I would, we'd be at Bragg and we get off duty and I would haul butt down to the one right off, I think it was Yadkin Road, grab chow and then come back. But me and a buddy of mine had a little bet for a while, finding out uh, who would eat more Taco Bell. And so we had made these rules. It was like, hey, I love Taco Bell so much I'll eat it every day. And we got to the point where lunch and dinner, because they didn't serve breakfast that time. We would basically go to Taco Bell for lunch and dinner, and we carried on for a long time, and never did break the chain. And then I won because he ended up going to what's that place that is Sinai, I think. He was with the Third Brigade. He was an infantryman, so he got deployed, and I was like, haha. But people kept seeing me going back and forth with Taco Bell bags, and God, there was a sergeant. He was a supply sergeant in HHB. It started with a C. I want to say Cullum or Collier or something like that. I can't remember his name. But he was like, "You got to be careful. One day you'll turn into a taco." And then ever since then, everybody started calling me Taco. And then I remember when they launched off AKO way back in the day, like 2000. No, it was like 2001. We had to all go upstairs and do our registration. And at the time, I was one of the only people that had broadband in my squad because I was a nerd. And we started doing the registration. It was like, what's your first name? Daniel. What's your middle name? And what's your last name? Johnson. What do people call you? And I was like, oh, people call me Taco. And then it spit out the generator. It was like, hey, you want to be Daniel.Franklin, Daniel.J.Franklin, or Taco.Franklin? I was like, yes. And then since then, it was all the way up until about 2010. My official U.S. Army email address was taco.franklin@us.army.mil.
Oh wow.
And
So in Charlie 9349 in up there in that building, your nickname of Taco became official.
yeah,
According to the United States Army. That's pretty cool, man.
yeah, it's great. Oh man, got it. Thinking back, I keep thinking
So
about all this. Go ahead.
You go ahead. You keep thinking about all the stuff. Tell
Yeah,
me.
so you
Talk.
know, I was going through thinking about different things, and yesterday I saw a message on Facebook that reminded me of something that I really have never forgotten. You had posted on there advertising the show for tonight, and then Robinson had uh, Sergeant Robinson. Uh, he had posted on there that, hey, this guy, and I was like, oh, great. I wanted to reply, be like, have I got a story about you? But anyway, the story goes, it's my, I get down to I get to brag from after airborne school and AIT. I come in there, I'm still Skeeter Wing Franklin, and I finally get to the unit, and everything's crazy because I guess it was going into DRF1 that day that I got there, and I didn't know what it was. I was just freaking out, and everybody was just running around, so many people, and and I show up, and I still got my bags. I'm trying to get checked in. I don't know anybody, and this one guy, and I can't remember who he was. He was a staff sergeant, and I can't remember what platoon he was in. All I know, I could see his face. If I saw his face, I'd be like, hey, that's the guy. But this story probably involves you because you're a platoon sergeant. But so he comes over and he was like, hey, are you the new guy? And I was like, yeah, I'm Private Franklin. I'm a 14 Juliet. Uh, I don't know where to go. And he's like, okay, I need you to go into the first sergeant's office, and I need you to ask him for a Pricky 7 battery. And I was like, okay. So I go in there and I knock on the first sergeant's office. Doors close, and then I hear this yes, and and I open up the door, and I was like, "Excuse me, first sergeant." And uh, First Sergeant Stout was the first sergeant at the time, but he was on TDY or leave or something like that. But behind the desk was this big, intimidating dude, Sergeant First Class Robinson, and I was like, "Yeah, I was sent in here to get a Pricky 7 battery to find a Pricky 7 battery." And then he just looked at me with like those like some kind of like dagger eyes, and I was like, oh, I get it now. I just got. And that was the first time I think I got smoked in the battery. And but you know, he was in there and he had all the platoon sergeants lined up around him. And then I did some push-ups and he sent me on my way, and I went back to the orderly room, and he called in the guy that got me to do that. And then all of a sudden I heard the door shut, a lot of laughing. I was like, oh, I'm the laughing stock now. But
Oh, I
yeah.
love it. I love it. I
So that was my
love
story
it.
about him.
Oh my gosh! Right. So didn't we have some characters in the battery back in those days? We had First Sergeant Stout and Captain Boyer, and oh my gosh, who was in the wait, Gray,
Mhm.
Woodley?
Oh yeah, Woodley, hell yeah.
Who was in the orderly room with you?
When I first got there,
Mongo.
I don't remember who Mongo was.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. So many people, right?
Yeah,
Oh gosh, bourgeois.
but yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's so whenever I first got there, it was the XO was Lieutenant Green, um, and then the commander was Captain Holler, and then First Sergeant Stout, and then in the orderly room with me, it was me, and then Sergeant Newton, which I have not heard from since he left. I wonder how he's doing. And then also, uh, what was his name? Um, uh, Carlin, Tim Carlin. He was there too, and he got out, I guess, shortly after I got there. Um, and then yeah, then you just had a bunch of other people. I don't remember everybody. We had Sergeant Lutz and the driver at the time. I think it was Specialist Bonds. I know he's probably got promoted after that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
and then um, God, there was a lot of people. Couple commo guys that I can't remember off the top of my head when I first got there, but later on we started getting like really cool people like Specialist Myers and those guys. But yeah, the Sierras, there was a lot of the ones to remember. I remember Sergeant Chapman. That guy was cool. I liked him. Sergeant Folks. Um, like you
That's
said, Sergeant
Mongo.
Gray.
That's Mongo.
Oh, that's Mongo. Okay.
Yeah.
uh, and then you know, uh, I remember Hobbs and Hefner. Um, may rest in peace. And then there's this. Oh man, so many people. I can try to sit here and name them all, but I don't want to offend anybody by missing their names.
I know. So it's an interesting thing. Wow, to think about placing yourself back in that time, back in those days, and try to remember the kinds of things, right? Like ORS and mission readiness and 2 hour recall, and cell phones were just coming around. Some people had them, some people didn't. Um, it was just a weird time to be, and here you were. How old were you, and what was going on in your world at that time?
I came in at I was 18 whenever I finally made it to Bragg, uh, and I didn't turn 19 till that summer. But I was coming up off the streets. The only thing I used to do back in the day was play like Nintendo and skateboard, and play a little guitar too. So I got there. I didn't even know that cell phones existed until about a year after I got there, and then hell, I didn't even know about the internet till about 2 months after I got there, and that changed my life. Dude from Alpha Battery showed me that. Um, I don't know if you guys remember. It was a Juliet in Alpha Battery named Patrick Clemens, and he was basically my battle buddy through the entire time I was there, and really awesome dude. I still talk to him a lot, and actually I called him up the other day, but we talk and we reminisce about the old times every now and then.
Yeah, right. So tell me about, young Dan
Yeah.
Franklin, when you were a kid and stuff. Where did you grow up? That kind of stuff.
Young me. So I grew up. I spent the first like 7 grades in Central California. There's a little place called Fellows, California. It's in Kern County, about 30 miles west of Bakersfield. Um, and it was a small oiler town, and I grew up with my brother, my sister, and we all went to this midway school that we loved. It was great. Um, as a kid, all I really did was I went outside, play with my friends from whenever I can get out there till the sun started setting. Once the whole back in the day, whenever they say, hey, when the street lights start coming on, you need to be home, and we're like, crap, let's go. Riding bicycles, playing video games, doing Lego stuff with my friends, building forts. We were out in the desert, so we try to find like these different kind of rock formations and caves and and like trees, and we take like scrap wood or whatever we can find and try to make these little forts, and we just have bases. And my parents were really good. They were trusting about how where I would be and how late I was. I would walk to my buddy's house, which was 3 or 4 miles up the road in another town, and I would just cut right through the fields to get there. And they really didn't mind, as long as whenever I got up there, I called them up and said, I'm that's hey, I'm over at Brian's house. Don't worry about me. And his mom would usually give me a ride because I'd stay out there late. Um, and then when I was in 7th grade, we ended up moving to Las Vegas, and we stayed there for about a year and a half. I graduated junior high from there. I really didn't care much for it. The is just not a very good uh, place that I thought was really good for me to be. Um, it's just the first school I was in was pretty nice, but then the second one, it wasn't. I didn't like it because it seemed like there wasn't any active violence going on, but it created that um, aggressive feel to where I was the new kid, and I was only there for like half a year, so it was kind of creepy because we'd have you know people just getting on me because I was wearing red shorts or something. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, But left there, and then we moved to Alabama the summer of '93, I believe, and I went to high school in a town called Locust Fork, which is about and like not even 45 minutes away from where I live now, and and spent my 4 years there, and then did just tried to learn how to play guitar, and kind of do skateboarding and just hanging out with my buddies. Uh, Played band. I was in the high school band doing marching. I played percussion. So my 10th grade year, I was doing the bass drum where you march around with the big bass drum. My junior year, I played snare, and then my senior year, I was supposed to play the quint drums, but one of the bass players broke their leg and couldn't march, and so it was either me or the other senior to go back down, and he had been in the band longer than I have, so I was like, you know what, I'll go back down. It's more manageable for me anyway, so I'm gonna go back down and do that. So finished out there. It was the uh, the summer or the fall of the of my senior year. I went out and went to MEPS, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to join the Army. And then, my dad was a Marine, or I guess he's still a Marine, but he was a prior service Marine, and he was telling me the different services, and he was like, I would really prefer if you didn't join the Navy or the Marines, especially if you wanted a family, because you'd be gone on the ship a lot. So I was like, all right, cool. He said either go Air Force or Army, and I was like, you know what, let's go Army, check it out. And then so um, I went out there, and I originally wanted to be an airborne MP. I was like, I want to jump out of planes and be a cop. Yeah, that would be really fun. And then uh, went out there to MEPS and did all my fun stuff, and then uh, got there, got to do my checking, do my checks for um, what job placement they want to be, what MOS. And I was like, I want to be a airborne MP. And they're like, well, they don't have airborne MPs. I was like, oh, I didn't know. I was like, oh, okay, well, what do you got? And they were like, well, we got this 14 Juliet. I was like, what do they do? And the guy was just like, and he started reading the name, but the job description was like 14 words long. He was looking at us like, hey, computers, it does computers. And I was like, hey, that sounds really cool. So back then I didn't really play computers that much or mess around with them. Just what we had with our old Macs that we had. We had like old them old Macs with like the built-in readers and everything like that. It was really, really old, and we were just typing away and just doing like typing, but on a computer. So I really wanted to check out what computers had for me, and then they're like, all right, cool. So you're on the delayed entry program, and so um, got out there, and then that spring before I left, I cut off my hair because back in the day I had really long hair. Uh, I got that. Do you want me to try to put that picture up for you again? So you can
Yeah,
see my.
yeah. See if you can put that picture up. See if we can make it happen.
All
Let's
right.
see.
Yeah. So yeah, the guy on the right's
Oh,
me,
there it goes.
not the guy on the left. The guy on the left, my dad. He I think that was 4th of July weekend, my senior year, and I was kind of already ready to go in the Army, and yeah,
Oh
that's my long
wow.
hair and my cheesy
Oh,
mustache.
that's great.
I miss it though. One day I want to get that mane back. I know my wife. I don't know if my wife wants to have it or not, but I like it. It's pretty cool. My kids. I think my kids would be pretty excited if I grew it out again.
Oh, that's great. That's great, right? It's interesting to think like your hair in a lot of ways is almost a crown for some people, right? It's the crown that you wear. And so as a a rebellious young kid, I bet you were playing guitar like rock songs and stuff, right? And wearing long hair.
hmm I don't think I was too rebellious. I did have my little wild little things, and it was one of those things. I was in high school. I didn't play. I didn't play very well, but in my mind, I did. I remember a couple times I took my guitar over to somebody's house and was like, "Hey, I play guitar," and they're like, "Hey, play us something." I'm just like, it sounds like a bag of quarters in a dryer, and I really didn't find my calling until after I got to Bragg and I was in a punk rock band out there, and that's where I kind of like started learning how to play with people and all that fun stuff.
So do you play guitar now? Are you an active guitarist? Is that something you enjoy doing?
I do every now and then. I used to play. I used to play a lot of like heavy metal and things like that, and heavy metal, punk rock, and all different kinds of genres. I haven't really been in the practice lately. I kind of picked it back up because my daughter really likes Stranger Things, and I don't want to do any spoilers just in case anybody hasn't watched that episode yet. But there was a episode where there was a Metallica song that was played, and it was a really iconic piece and great song. And so my daughter had it on her playlist, and I was like, yes, that is awesome because that's the stuff I listen to. And then I was sitting up there and I'd start playing, Master of Puppets on the guitar, and she's like, you know how to play that? I'm like, I don't know it all, but I can make it sound good. And um, she plays clarinet. She's like, do you think I could play it on the clarinet? I was like, I don't know. Maybe you can find something that you could play on there, um, but I think she wants to try to learn how to play it on there. I mean, that'd be pretty cool if I got got better on my guitar, and then she got found out some transcription. What I don't know what the word is, transcription or whatever of like the bass line or something on clarinet, and she just played with me. That sounds like something I'd really like to do.
Take a moment, if you don't mind, and brag on your family. Tell me a little bit about your family.
All right, so my family. So my wife is named Mary Ellen. One word, no space, and the E is a lowercase. That's something that we specify every time we do that. um, Yeah, she's from a small town in Pennsylvania called Jim Thorpe, named after the Olympian. It used to be called Mock Chunk, but in the mid '80s they changed the name to Jim Thorpe. Really great place. If you're ever in the Poconos, I highly suggest going out there. If you go out there, it's a beautiful like old coal miner town, and they do like whitewater rafting. They do all kinds of outdoorsy stuff there. But if you ever go out there, I suggest going to Tommy's Pizza and Subs and get one of their hoagies because it is amazing. Their bread out there is, I miss it. I miss going out there for that. It's like, hey, let's go visit your in-laws so I can get some Tommy's. Just plain. I like visiting the in-laws too, but Tommy's is definitely a plus. But anyway, I met her in 2007. Yeah, it was 2000. I think it was 2000. Yeah, 2007. Um, I met her when I was doing I was in the guard by then. Second of the 174th ADA out of McConnellsville, Ohio, and I was a W1, and I was at the NCRIADS, which is out in Washington D.C., and I was going through the whole online dating thing, and but if my mother and father-in-law asked, we met in church. But we were doing the online dating thing, and I we messaged each other and we ended up going out on the date, and it was a lot of fun. Um, we went out to dinner and then had some ice cream, and then started dating after that. It was a really good time. We clicked very well, obviously, and and then whenever I got out from that rotation, she ended up moving close to where I was in Ohio and got a job out in on the east side of Ohio. Back then, I was originally living on the west side of Ohio, but then I got back from the deployment or the mobilization, and the job that I had went away because there was like that was the year that like a bunch of people went bankrupt and a lot of companies like went under, and so I got a job on. She got a job on the east side of the state, so I moved on the east side of the state, and it all went well from there. Um, which was better for me because before, when I was living on the west side of the state, I was living in the Dayton area, and I had about a 3.5 hour drive to get to drill. And when we moved to Zanesville, um, we I only had like a half-hour drive to drill, which was nice. That was like the shortest time I've ever had to drive to drill before. Now I drive about 5 hours. Um, it's rough finding slots for a 140 Alpha, but I really like the unit I'm in now. Um, but we dated for about a year and some change, and then we decided to get married, and we got married in Jim Thorpe, which was an awesome ceremony. We got married in her church, and then the uh, the reception, and I don't mean to toot my own horn or anything like that, but the reception I think was probably the most awesome reception that we had because we did it outside, and her family owns this big area where they do like big events and everything like that, like uh, town events and like cookouts, like big town cookouts and fishing competitions and stuff like that. Not competitions, but like they bring um, uh, special education kids out there, and they do a annual fishing thing out there just for the kids, and it's really great place. But anyway, there's a nice creek that goes through it and a lot of open spaces, and we just had a really good time because we had people were in the creek or in the creek, swimming, doing whatever they do, and then we had uh, it wasn't all posh. We had like these guys in shorts and that were part of the what they call the Germantown Grove Club committee that was doing all the cooking. We had a bounce house there. We had things for the kids. We had just I was in the bounce house too. Don't worry, it was a lot of fun, and it was just a big party, and it wasn't very stressful or anything like that. We didn't have. I don't even think we had glass tableware. It was all plastic, and just all kinds of drinks and food, and we even had a tray of like just pizza rolls. So like Totino's pizza rolls, we had like two big serving trays full of them. So it's pretty relaxed. Um, and then so fast forward some time, we had our first daughter in 2009. Her name is Claire, and then in 2011 we ended up having Liam, uh, and then that was it for a long time. And then I was going to Iraq as a contractor in 2017, and then we found out that we were pregnant with my youngest one now, Amelia, and then and then they've all been really fun. I thought we were done with kids, and then yeah, so I think Tuesday is when the next one's coming. So we've got another girl on the way, and it's either it's anytime after Tuesday is when that one's going to come. Uh, don't know what we're going to call her yet, but we usually wait till the kid's born before we start naming it.
Kids, what you know how it happens, right? Somebody's giving you that class, right? It's not.
Yeah,
It's random.
yeah. The
Okay.
stork brings
All
them
right.
in.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Congratulations,
thank you.
Dad. That's awesome, right? Yeah. So it's interesting. Well, what it proves that you continue to be in a loving relationship, right? That's a good
Mhm.
thing. So yay. And and blessings that the Lord wants you to bring new creations into this world, and that's really a blessing. Tell me, if you don't mind, I don't believe that there's any atheists in foxholes. Let's segue that. Tell me about your spirituality and how that might drive you on those dark nights.
Um, actually, my wife is very religious. I am not. Um, I mean, I'm open to whatever my soldiers and my family or anybody else wants to however they want to worship, whatever they want to do. As long as it's not hurting themselves or anybody else, it's I'm open to letting them do whatever kind of things they do to comfort themselves. Um, I just I don't really have like a I don't really think that of myself as thinking of the higher power or whoever, whether it be God or whatever. Um, whenever I start um, thinking about um, stressful situations and I'm trying to get through them, I just I talk to my wife about it, and or try to think of positive ways to get through. Like, hey, it might suck now, but once you get through, you're probably gonna have a really good story about it. Um, but even though that being said, I grew up, my family uh, was Christian. I believe they were. I don't even want to guess what they were because I don't want to offend them. But they were they were they it was, I want to say Pentecostal, but I can't remember. It's been so long ago since I've talked about all that stuff. But yeah, I haven't been very religious, but I can tell you that there'd been a few times riding in a full rig on a freaking C-141 that I was like, okay, maybe I need to start praying to somebody. But it was rough, man. We had there there's just this one time. It was this I don't the jump ended up getting scratched, but it was a scary. Well, there was two of them. One got scratched. And the other one, the one I'm talking about, didn't. But we had so much bad chop in the air. It was just like I thought that they were like we were getting ready to just crash or something, man. And I'm looking over and people are like dumping out their paper bags that they had for vomit and just puking in their shirt, and like everybody's like going crazy. It was very scary, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. And then and then there was one time where like we hit this like really really hard like piece of turbulence, and I was like, oh my god, that was crazy. And like right as soon as that happened, like you heard the bailout alarms and everything go off, and I was like, oh crap, this is for real. We got to get out of this plane. So like we all started getting up, and the load master like jumped up, and how it is back today, how you had all your bags together, so it was really hard to your rucks together. It was really hard to get up. And that jump master jumps up, grabs a hold of that static line, and pulls himself up, and standing on people is like, sit the f down, sit down. And then like by then the alarms went off, or the alarms ceased to go off, and we all sat down. We're all nervous as hell, and then we're still flying around. It always seems that you're flying longer than what you have been, but we got through that storm, and I don't remember if it was a storm or what. You can't see out of those. And then we ended up making it through, and did the whole stand up, hook up, shuffle the door type thing. And then it was still a lot of turbulence. I think we were jumping on. I think it was. I want to say it's Luzon. It was that one that was way off in. I think it was a Camp McCall.
Yeah,
But it was
lose
way out
on,
there,
lose on.
and and I want to say that was no, that wasn't my last jump division. Maybe it was. I don't remember. But no, it wasn't my last jump. But I remember my buddy of mine. He was right in front. He was right next to me in the chalk. He was going out the door before me. His name was. He got out before me too. His name was Specialist. I think his name was Mike Smith. I know that there's like tons of Mike Smith, but he was a Juliet. And uh, funny thing about me and him was we used to play this game called Diablo 2, and on it you can get online, and you had like this ID. It was called a Blizzard ID, and you'd be able to like have your own login. And whenever we would jump, we would take a 3x5 card and we put our account login information. It's like, hey, if one of us dies during this jump, you can have my character. And we're like, sweet. So we'd have it in our breast pocket. But anyway, so so we started going. It was green light. We're going, and we hit this big pocket, and like he goes up, and it was like it was he was going toward the door, but he was inside the aircraft, and he fell and like lifted up forward, and then like managed to like hand off his static line. It was kind of like a weird movie type thing, and then like fell backwards out of the plane. So it was like he handed it off, and then like boom, like he basically about I swear it, but he probably did a gainer out of that thing. And I was like, I didn't think about getting his character at that time. I was like, holy crap, we just lost Mike. I was thinking that he like got it wrapped around, spun him like a top, but we got down to the bottom, and I was happy as hell to get off that plane. But we got down to the bottom, and well, got out, and I was like, it was awesome because I had that much peace because we had just been in this aircraft for like I don't know 3 or 4 hours, and it was just like you know pennies in a freaking coffee can shaking up, and everybody's sick and everybody's hot, everybody's wanting to get out, and we jump out, and it's nice and cool, and it's quiet, and you'd be like, yep, that's the plane, leave me here. And then we get down to the bottom, and then we recover our stuff, and we go out to the simulator area, and I'm like, Mike, where are you? And I found him, and I was like, sweet, we get to play later. He's like, yeah, you don't get my character now, but yeah, that was a good time. Well, that was a bad time that ended up turning into a good time. But it's one of those things, we're out there, we're getting roughed up, and I'm like, please God, please let me get through this thing. And then get down to the bottom. I'm like, yep, just like I said, it might suck for a little bit, but eventually it's going to get better. So you can't let things get to you. Resilience.
Amen. Amen. Dude, being in a packed C-141 and flying nap of the earth for an hour en route to Luzon drop zone seems like 20 hours, right? You seem like, especially like if you're the third ship in a 5 ship mission or something like that, and this aircraft has to jockey back and forth the whole time, right? He's constantly, trying to keep his position. The guy in the front ain't worried about it. They're riding like a Cadillac. The folks in the back ain't worried about it because they're cool. But the ones in the middle, right? That especially the third or the fourth aircraft, they're constantly, man, that pilot's up there going, what's going on? It's like being in a run. Remember being in a division run and all the accordions of 1 minute we're sprinting, and the next minute we're standing still.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, were you saying the third or the fourth aircraft, or the third of the fourth aircraft?
No, third or the fourth. But yeah, look, the
It's
third or
usually
the fourth aircraft. Hey, we were like the air defenders that would. We were jumping all the time. We had we had a reputation in the division of being great jump masters, and we had the capability with the Stinger missile.
Mhm.
And I remember you coming in as one of the first, like, I don't want to say it, but you kind of said it yourself, a new breed soldier, somebody that embraced video games, embraced the internet and the culture of the connectivity of the Juliet.
Mhm.
Our branch continues to be on the cutting edge of data and sharing information. And you were one of those guys, and you happened to be a 14 Juliet. What better fit could there be? How did all that fit for you? What did you think about that?
Um, I really liked it. It took a while to get established to figure out what really our purpose was, because you go to AIT, you learn knobs and jobs. You don't really learn what you're going to be doing. Like you get out and you start setting up your site, and the only thing you know is just how to turn things on. Um, but there's, it's a lot bigger. We got there and whenever I went to Charlie Battery, I was in orderly room and I didn't mess with the FAD for a little bit until I think after we got through with DRF1. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'm not doing my job for a little bit. I'm over here making memorandums and doing the 4-pack Form 1200. And then we ended up started doing I think it was called Tactical Tuesdays, where we went out and started doing integration with the Singars with our FAD and the Avengers, and that was pretty cool because I got to learn how to actually do integration because in AIT we did that a little bit, but you got to see the data flow and see, and I it was the first time I was able to see what the Sierra saw on their side, and then going from there and doing division talk exercises. I can't remember what the range was, but uh, it was right out there in front of that big old compound, and we set up. Each brigade would have their own um, uh, talk up, and then each battery had their talk within their respective brigade talks. And that's the first time that I've actually started integrating at a larger scale than just a battery level thing. And it was really cool how we shared information and seeing the importance of how early warning is and radar picture and then whenever I went over to HHB, I think it was in 2001, and became part of the radar squads. I got to learn that side and see where the tracks come from, and not just simulated air picture. And got to call out division early warning net. Got to learn about that and do um, you know uh, hostile um, calls, hostile aircraft calls, and things like that. Um, that was really cool. And then it just grew from there because you learn so much going through all these different echelons, and then you go out to the field or do a warfighter exercise, um, and you learn the importance of what air defense can do, and not just engage the enemy, but do enemy suppression. Like I remember one time just before I got out, and this was probably one of the coolest times I've ever had as a Juliet. Was Me and another guy, Tereshuk. We were tasked out to. We were in the early warning section in HHB, and we were tasked out to be the CP for Delta Battery. What was the guy's name? It was Captain Law. I think he was the commander. And we drove down to Fort Stewart to do a warfighter. And then when we were down there, we were doing the warfighter, and and what I was doing was with the AMDUs we had the FAD and we have the AMDUs, and then with the AMDUs, every time that I would go on shift, I would do a playback of the last 12 hours, and you could see the where the aircraft were moving back and forth. And then so I slowed it down, and I was like, hey, I clicked on the aircraft because you can click on it and see all the information because it was a playback. This is coming down as uh, a large scale raid, like a mini, like two or three or more raid, and then they'd come down, stop at a certain point, and disappear, and then reappear, and then go back. Whenever they reappear, they'd reappear as single. So, I was going around and I was like, hey, this is kind of shady. And well, back then we didn't use the word shady. This is kind of crazy. But so I was logging them, and I was seeing that it was happening a lot. So I made like a enemy air out there, and went and told the commander. I was like, hey, I think there's something going on here because there's a lot of things coming in, little things coming out, and so I went to the intel guys, and I was asking the intel guys if we had anything around there to, I say, hey, there might be something here. We need to figure out what's going on. And I was still a specialist back then, And they're like, okay, cool. And so they came back later on and said that there wasn't, they didn't have anybody out there. They couldn't see, they couldn't know anything. Meanwhile, this stuff's still going on. It was probably about once every 2 to 3 hours that run would go. And then so I would go and I went to the artillery guys. I was like, hey, Intel says there's nothing out here. We don't have anybody on ground. I think something's really, really going on at this grid square. Can we shoot down there? Can we call for fire? They're like, yeah, let's see what we can do. And then they could talk to Captain Law, and then he explained what was going on too. And then there was a fire mission, and they launched off the rounds, and then probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, uh, 5 or 10 minutes after that happened, they called POSIX, and then they were like, hey, what did you do? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you like air defense caught this thing. And I was like, well, what happened? Like, was it something awesome? And it was basically the enemy. It was simulated, but the enemy had used that location as their refueling area and their supply distribution center, what is called BSA. Their far like that was a big thing, and we basically demolished 97% of their air power and supplies. And I was like, holy crap. And then that made me feel really good. And then like probably maybe 2 hours later, I was up in, not even, I want to say like maybe like not even an hour later, I was up in front of the brigade, aviation brigade, and I was getting an ARCOM right there in the field. So I was like, holy crap. I like it. It's, this data information and dependable air picture can save you in the field, not only to engage a target while it's coming for you with a missile, but you could see trends of things coming through, and you'd be like, hey, they're using this. Let's clear out that grid square, and I bet we'll win the war.
You're a war hero, man.
All
You
right,
won the simulated battle. That's awesome. Yay.
Vigi games.
Yeah. So I mean, so that proves, right? That proves that you are a digital master for all times. I gotta ask you. I just gotta ask you. Tell me about this shirt you're wearing. What is this shirt you got on?
All right, so yeah, so I mean, I'll see if I can get a little closer, but let's see. It's like a nice little button-up shirt, and it's got American hero Apollo Creed on there.
I thought that was Apollo Creed. I was like, what in the world? You're
Yeah,
the man. So
this
what
is
would
my
make you wear that shirt?
this is my I Love America T-shirt. So I wear this for
Amen.
you know Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July. This is my America shirt. He died for this country
I
fighting the
love it.
Russians.
Oh, that's great. That's
Plus,
great.
my wife
What
really
is
likes
it
Rocky.
that keeps you? Oh, there you go. What is it that keeps you going? That your hobbies and things. What do you do when you're not doing podcasts and interviews with me?
So, um, let's see. I don't get to play as much video games as I do anymore. I usually get back from work, and I hang out with the kids. I like to cook, so normally I'm doing the cooking for dinner. And with all this teleworking stuff, it makes it a little bit easier because I could prep and actually have everything set up the way I want it. But it's hang out with the kids, and then like whenever I get my free time after the kids go to bed, we usually watch TV, um or I'll get a hold of some of my friends that I got from online communities and play video games. Um, I do on Saturday. I picked up about 2016, I think. I picked up a fun hobby where I do radio shows. So I was playing this game called I still play it now, but I was playing a game called Star Trek Online, and I got mixed in with a community that does radio shows. And in this game, it's one of those massive multiplayer games where a lot of people can meet together in one spot, and everybody would get together, and you'd have a DJ that would stream music on a website, and you could listen to music while everybody dances and just kind of hangs out. And I thought that was really cool. And I ended up getting caught up into that, and I was doing it a lot when I first started doing DJ the shows, but I only do it once a week now on Saturdays. So Saturday night, um, I usually play a show from roughly about 10 o'clock our time till midnight, um, just because I don't have a lot of more time to really fill for that thing. But I love it. My online, avatar person is called Word. He looks just like me, but he has a sweet mustache and aviator glasses. And I play, and he has a Hawaiian shirt. Looks kind of like uh, like uh, like a like a Magnum PI, like a Tom Selleck kind of look. And except he's not as awesome as Tom Selleck. And and I play a lot of 80s tunes whenever I do my shows. Every now and then I do some 90s stuff like grunge and everything, but a lot of times it's stuff like Motley Crue and Rat and Iron Maiden, um, Judas Priest, all those really awesome bands that we used to play during division runs. That's the kind of stuff that I used to play.
I love it. I love it. And so, are you playing it on this game platform, or is it a website that you're doing it on?
Yeah, so there's different types of software you can use to stream this on. I use a free software called Mix, and I've been using the same version for years. Every time that it makes an upgrade, I hate the upgrade, so I just use what I know. And then the group that we have we rent out a streaming service so that we can broadcast it, and then so we stream the music separately from the game, and then inside the game we just, if we want to type to people, we use type, and then we, like in that game, we say like, hey, we're partying at this planet on this instance, and then some people travel over to that planet, and we'll do different planets today. Like one day uh we'll be playing on like Vulcan, and another day we'll be playing on Konos, and another one we're playing at some space station that everybody can go to. And it's really cool because sometimes we'd have a really big turnout, and it's all digital people, and we're just out there to you know just listen to good tunes, socialize, and have whatever kind of vice that people like to partake. And everyone just kind of has good vibes and just hangs out and dances, like digital dances and stuff like that. I usually have my character jump on a bar and he's doing air guitar the entire time.
So, are you in VR? Do you have your goggles on? Is that what you're talking about?
Um, I do not. No, we don't do VR. It's just like I, I couldn't if I can't like bring up a screenshot right now, um, but it's all just playing like a normal video game, except you go to the website,
Okay, I got
or
you.
you go to like we can stream it. And you can go to the directory on like Winamp or media player. But Kurtang Pirate Radio, www.kurtangpirateradio.com, or easier way if you just go to kpr.rocks, Kilo Papa Romeo .rocks, like as in rock. That's the website we go to. Um, and then we have the schedule on there. A lot of people play different kind of music, and it's really fun. We get people who go to it's all Star Trek based. So we got people who go to like the Star Trek conventions, and they actually have like the actors go up and they say like, hey, this is Gates McFadden, and you're listening to KurtangPirateRadio.com. The party is here, and that's our catch line. KPR, the party is here. And if you go to kpr.rocks later on, you can look on there and it'll have like about the DJs, and if you go to Word, WURD, that's my character, and you can see him. He's got blue jeans and a Hawaiian shirt and sweet mustache, which I sometimes have, but my wife doesn't like the mustache, so um, you know, I can't have it all the time. Usually, whenever I go get mobilized or I go away for a long time, he comes back. So uh, it's it'll be back. It'll be back.
That's the word mustache, huh?
Word, yeah.
Word. Oh my gosh. So tell me about your online persona character Word and how Word is different from you.
I he's actually not too I not really different or I mean I based him to kind of look like me when I first started off before I started doing the DJ stuff. It was just the reason why I named him Word was because me and my friends, whenever we get together, we'd be like Word, and it'd be like Word, and and that was just kind of like it turned into our greeting, and then so I named him Word, and then every now and then I'd call him Word, be like Word, and it's not really anything special. You just whenever I used to actually play the game and like go out and do the missions and stuff, he wasn't very like into character or anything like that. It wasn't until I started um, doing going to like the DJ scene, I was like, you know what, I got to get out of this Star Trek uniform and get something that looks kind of relaxing, something that I like. And so I was going around to like all the different planets looking for different shops, and I found a place that did like blue jeans and Hawaiian t-shirts, and I was like, that's me, because it's like opened up at the top too, so you can kind of see a little chest hair, and and um
A
it's like
little
this is
Leisure
this
Suit Larry-ish.
hell yeah. I haven't heard leisure term leisure suit Larry in a long time, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, so we got yeah, it's just my catchphrase on there is hell yeah, so it'd be like hell yeah, you know, and everybody gets motivated and stuff. And I really like doing the DJ show. It kills about 2 hours of time, but at the same time, it's really cool whenever you get a bunch of listeners in there, and you play what music that you like, and there's some people that haven't heard the song in a long time, and they're like, man, this is awesome, I haven't heard this type of song in decades, this is a great choice. I was like, yeah. And I change it up and play some new stuff, play some old stuff, but it's a lot of fun. Every now and then I'll do like requests on my shows, but I usually don't because I'm kind of pressed for time, and it's really easy for me to like drag and drop stuff into my playlist. But I'd rather not do that because I kind of, whenever I'm doing my show prep, I try to find what blends with what. So like, you have one song and it ends in a certain key, and then you slam into another one, and it's just like, yeah, and everybody's like, whoa. It's a lot of fun. I love doing the radio stuff, and I would like to do it more, but there was a whole time in my whenever I was doing it, at one point I was doing a show every day, and then I was doing 3-hour shows, so it got it got pretty busy. So and then I was feeling the burnout, so I was like, you know what, I I don't want to do it all. So I just started going back to one day, and I don't get paid for it or anything. It's nonprofit. It's just something for people to do. The only thing that we do is we the DJs. There's probably about maybe 10 of us active now on that station, but we pay the broadcasting fees, but we don't ever ask for any money or donations or anything like that. We just do it because we like doing it, and I've been with that station for probably about maybe 4 years or so, and they've been around for probably about 7 years, something like that. I can't remember.
So tell me about the next step after Private Franklin there in Charlie Battery, Cold Steel. Did tell me what happened next. You said you were in Charlie Battery, then you went to HHB.
Yeah.
What come next?
Okay, so after that, I ended up getting out. I was a little bit salty when I was getting out, but and I was like, I was ready to be done with the army, and then the opportunity was there for me to join the guard, and I was thinking about it heavily, and that was when I was ACAP, and I got a hold of my buddy um, Pat Clemens, Assassin 7-1, and he had gotten out probably about a year and a half before I did, and I was talking to him about it, and he's like, I was like, man, I don't want to go back to Alabama, um, but they got all these guard opportunities, and everything. Maybe I can just go there. And he's like, dude, just why don't you just move to Ohio? And I was like, there's nothing in Ohio. I was like, yeah, dude, I live in Ohio. Come out here, and you can join the guard up here, and you could be a Juliet. And I was like, what? And then we found out that I had found out that there was Juliets in air defense in Ohio. They didn't have it in Alabama, and so I was like, sign me up. So I ended up going back to the guard recruiter at ACAP, and I signed up for to the 2nd and 174th out of McConnellsville, Ohio, and then got out, and I ended up me and Pat Clemens ended up getting an apartment with one of his buddies from his high school, and then we got that that was in the Dayton area, Beaver Creek to be exact, and not far away from where we lived, probably about 20 minutes down the road, was another guy who was in 3-4. He was a radar mechanic named John Willis. So like we got to hang out a lot, and it was really cool. John was in Willis was in our unit too, so we would all carpool to drill. It was like 3.5 hours to get there, which was awesome because we were E4s, and we'd pretty much spend a lot of gas money getting down there. And so I get down there, and I was on terminal leave for a long time, and wasn't going to start up with the guard stuff until that June. And when I went to go report, my first drill was their AT. So I got there, and I was like 2 weeks AT. And I got there, and I didn't have any gear. The only thing I had was like whatever canteen that I had that I had kept from Bragg, because you know how you got to keep your issued stuff, and then you had to have the ones for division review. So I had a pistol belt, and in like my LBE and my canteen from division review that I was that's the only thing I had for the field. And then I didn't have my Kevlar. All I had was my beret, and I didn't have the unit patch. So I went in there, and I was just like, you know, I didn't have a soft cap because we weren't on, we couldn't use soft caps, at Bragg, and so I didn't have one at all. And then we we show up, and it was pretty interesting. We went out to the field. The only thing I really had was the stuff that is described, and then my poncho liner, my whoopee that I kept. And then yeah, we had sentinels out there, but we didn't have any shelters, which was kind of crazy. So um, we were still learning how to use all that stuff, and I was the only one who actually had experience. Between me and Clemens, we're the only two that had experience on the radar. So it was pretty fun because we got to teach them everything. And then so we got through with that 2 week AT, and then we were driving back. I was up at Camp Grayling, Michigan, um, and we were coming back, and we stopped. It was like a 2-day trip, so we drove a little bit from Michigan to Toledo, and from Toledo the next day we were going to drive back to McConnellsville. Well, the the we had we I was sitting on a bunk, and and I still had my uniform on. I hadn't kind of wound down from the convoy down to Tupelo, and and I was just sitting there, just kind of vibing. And then I see all these officers start coming toward me, and it was like captains and a major, and it's basically the battalion staff. I didn't know any of these guys at the time, and they were like, "Hey, are you Specialist Franklin?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me, sir." I got up, did my formal stuff. They're like, "Yeah, go ahead and sit down. You just came from Bragg, right?" I was like, "Hell yeah, 348A, airborne, all the way." You know, back then I was just like, you know, airborne this, airborne that, you know how everybody is when they're around Bragg. You get that mindset when just like we are Bragg, we are the army, everybody else is a leg. But anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'm specialist Franklin, nice to meet you all and everything. And then we they're like, hey, do you know do you know a Colonel Mac? And I was like, um, I know back then I was like, I know a Major Mac. And he's like, oh, I wonder if we're talking to. He was in the airborne. I was like, you talking about Lorenzo Mac? And he's like, yeah, that's him. And I was like, oh, cool, he got promoted. That's awesome. And I was like, why do you guys ask? And they're like, because we're we're gonna be, um, he's gonna be our new commander. And I was like, what? So I found out that Colonel Mack was going to come over to the National Guard side and do a tour out there as a commander of the second 174th, and I was like, this is awesome. And then and then and then they're like, what can you tell us about it? I was like, well, he loves PT and he's awesome. He's a badass. And which one of you guys? Which one of y'all are commanders and which one of you guys are staff? And they were like, oh, I'm staff. I'm commander. I was like, get your crap together because he's gonna make sure that you guys are squared away. And he did. He turned that uh you know he turned that whole battalion around. That it was it was an amazing change in the climate in there. And he contributed to a lot of um, uh, professional development for all the officers, and it trickled down to everybody else. You know, there was in that town that we were in, it was Southeast Mountains, Ohio, and sad to say, at the time there was still a lot of racism and everything of things going on down there. And then he came in, and it changed a lot of people's views about you know different people. And like that battalion is what when I left, that battalion was just 180 from whenever I came down. I'm not saying that the battalion was racist or anything. It's just like there was like that climate where the town was there was some people that were in there that just didn't appreciate everybody and were narrow-minded. And then he came down in there, and everything changed, and it was just it was it was it was really awesome. And he did a lot of good things for that town, because uh, a lot of times whenever there's like battalion commanders or something of Guardian, they're only there for a weekend. They don't get really involved. He was getting involved because he was always there. And and a lot of and then I still hear people that were second lieutenants and first lieutenants back then who are majors and colonels now. Even there's like two or three people that were in that battalion that are generals now. And that you know they they credit a lot of stuff to Colonel Mack. And hell, I credit my path as a warrant officer by Colonel Mack, because when it was 2004, I think. I was still a specialist then, and I was having a lot of issues getting promoted because you know the way the guard worked at the time, it was still kind of seniority and points based. But like if somebody was it was really hard for me to get promoted because at the time there was only two E5 slots in the battalion, and then there was like a bunch of E6s, like three E6 slots, and then one E7 slot. So it was kind of weird balance. And uh, and so like people would hold those E5 slots and E6 slots for so long that it would just they wouldn't go anywhere. And I remember like a few times the E5 slot would open up, and I'd be like, sweet, I'm next on the list. Let's freaking go. And then there'd be somebody else in another group or another unit or something who was coming up for enlistment, and he's like, I'll get out unless I can get promoted E5. So they re-enlist to try to find an E5 slot, and they move in to that slot, and they basically get it after they go to AIT. But that happened to me a couple times. That's gotten better now. You can't really just reclass and get promoted easily now, but I mean, over other people that have been waiting on it. But and I got to the point where I was like, I want to get out. This I don't want to be an E4 forever. And I had just came off a mobilization a couple months before that, and and uh, and then I was working at a store called Linens and Things. It was like a Bed Bath and Beyond, but it was like that's the same thing. But anyway, I was working there, and I had like an old Nokia cell phone, and that I would keep in my locker. And mind you, we just got back from a deployment, so I go down there, and I was on break, and I just really quick look at my phone, and it's like one missed call from unknown, and there was a voicemail. I was like, I don't have time for the voicemail. I'll chuck it out and check it later. And I go on lunch, and I ended up having two voicemails, and no, I still had that one voicemail, so I checked my voicemail, and it was like, hey, this is Sergeant so and so from HHB. Uh, we need you to give us a call whenever you can. I'm like, well, I'm still working, so I'll give you a call when I get off work. And then still finishing up my shift, and then I ended up having, by the end of my shift, I checked and I had a bunch more missed calls, and then it started going up. So like, the first one was from my readiness NCO, and then my second call was from my first sergeant, and then my third call was from my battery commander, and then the last call that I had was from Colonel Mack. And then whenever I started saying, "Hey, this is Colonel Mack, battalion commander," I like started thinking, "Oh crap, I missed movement. Like, I am." They were doing a recall, and I missed it, and I'm like freaking out. And he said, "Hey, give me a call when you get this. I don't care what time it is. Here's my personal cell phone number. Call me." And I was like, "Okay." So I jetted home, and I ran upstairs, got on the phone. I was like, "Hey, sir, I'm totally sorry that I missed things, and I'm freaking out." And he's like, "Calm down, Airborne." And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, sir? What's going on?" He's like, "I just want to see how you're doing," and then like it calmed me down a lot. So he's like, "I just want to see how you're doing," and you know, we started talking this morning. He's like, "Well, what's your plans for the army?" I was like, "Well, uh, I'm planning on getting out. This isn't really working for me." And then he started talking. He's like, "Hey, do you know what a 140 Alpha is?" And I was like, "He's like the guru. He's like the technical genius." And by then, the only one that I ever knew was Chief Purcell back at Bragg. And I was like, "Hey, he's the person that knows the FAD. He can get everybody talking. He's the one that everybody goes to." And he's like, "Do you know who the one in this battalion is, second?" And I was like, "No, we don't have one. At least I don't know that we have one." And then he goes, "Well, he goes, do you want to? I was wondering if you wanted to be a 140 Alpha." And I was like, "I can't be a 140 Alpha." And he's like, "Why not?" And I was like, "Because I'm not a warrant officer." And he was like, "I'm not asking you to be if you are a warrant officer. I want to know if you want to become a 140 Alpha and be a warrant officer." And I was like, "Wait, you're asking me to go warrant?" And he's like, "Yes, sir." And I was like, "Whoa." I wasn't really expecting to, like, if you would ask me back then that I was going to become a warrant, I I would just probably laugh at you because I'd be like, "Never." And but like, because of that conversation that he had with me, he was like, "Hey," yeah, I was like, "Hey, what do I need to do?" And he's like, "You just got to tell me you want to do it, and I'll start making calls." And and sure enough, man, the next day I got a call from the warrant recruiter, and uh, we started getting our packet together. And me being an E4, I was thinking, normally you're an E6 or something back then, E6, E7 to even be considered for a warrant. And so I started reaching out to everybody I could that I could think of to write letters of recommendation. I got a hold of Colonel Boyer, Sergeant Major Stout, and they wrote me Rex. I didn't know any 140s at the time, so I wasn't able to get a senior 140 recommendation. But I had a lot of senior level officers that had put in recommendations for me, um, and then went out, did my physical and all the medical stuff, and put in my packet. and then like 2 weeks after I put my packet in, I was in Columbus doing my federal recognition board, and then they told me about 2 months later that I got accepted and appointed. And that following April, I think it was April. The following April, I was in candidate school, and I was like, wow, this happened so fast. This is awesome. And I give a lot of thanks to Colonel Mack for motivating me to do that. And here I was, 2004, getting ready to get out because I was sick of the army, and that was probably about 6 years of service. And this past summer, I just hit 24 years, and I'm still in. I'm probably going until they kick me out.
I love it. That's awesome, right?
I love it. Warrant
So,
is great.
yeah. So, what system are you currently working on?
Um, so we still use FAD. Well, I'm in a new. I just got transferred units last week. Um, give you a quick backstory. I was in the second 174th, got my warrant, and then went back to the second 174th. Did a mobilization to DC, and then went to the 174th Brigade when it stood up, and I was there for a few years. As the interface control officer for like the NCR stuff. So every time that we would go to the NCR, I would go down there as the interface control officer, making sure like the radars and everybody linked up. Um, and then I went to, then I found out that there was a unit in Mississippi, the first of 204th, and I went to them. Probably it was like 2014, I think, is when I went down there, and was in that Air Defense Battalion. And then, so the entire time I've been short range air defense, Avengers, Vanilla Avengers, Sluta Q Avengers, FAD, um, FAD heavy. It was National Guard was the first time we ever got to use EPLARs, so we're really EPLARs heavy. Like back at Bragg, we used to do back at Bragg, we used to in the active duty they use SINGARs a lot for their data links, but nobody has ever dove into not well. There are people who use EPLARs, but not as much. We didn't use them whenever we were there, um, but I think it's a better if once you get it working, it's a better platform for communications. But then you get to now. I'm part of I'm the interface control officer for the 185th Expeditionary Aviation Brigade out of Jackson. I'm part of their Air Defense Airspace Management cell, and we work with FAD, AMDUs, TAEUS, which is an air control system, like an air traffic control system. And then we also use the ADSI, which has been around for years. And I've been doing a lot of great stuff integrating their systems and their mission command systems with my stuff, so that they could see our air picture over through their system, which was pretty fun. We did a warfighter not too long ago, and it was the first time that the commander had seen air picture on their CPOF ever since he's been in. So it's pretty nice. I've got a really kick-ass team over there. We're preparing for a mobilization. So the NC there was when we went over there, there wasn't the air defense cell was not really slotted. They had an officer, they had two NCOs, and then I was coming in as a volunteer at the time, but now I'm actually part of the unit. And they said, "Hey, do you know some 14 golfs?" Because Juliet switched to golf. Do you know some 14 golfs that might want to come over, do a rotation overseas with us? I was like, "Yeah, let me make some calls." Well, we had just got back in 2021. We had just got back from doing another DC rotation, and I was in charge of the mission systems technicians. What the mission systems technicians do is we're basically the troubleshooters for the radars. And so, if a radar went down, my guys would jump on it, and if they had any issues, they would call me, and then I would be like their, second or third line. And I had a really good team. We trained them up pretty well. They were really automated, and they hated calling me, so they'd call me up and they'd be like, "Hey, we've already tried everything that you normally ask us to try. What do I do?" And then I'd go through the whole checklist and be like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to actually go out there in person because it's all remote. And and they said right before I left, it was like 4 E4s, an E5, and an E6 and an E8 in my team. And it's like, hey, if you ever go anywhere, you let us know because we want to go with you. And and I was like, sweet. So when I found out about this mission, um, I was like, let me make some calls because I needed like 3 or 4 dudes, and called up the first guy, and I was like, hey man, did you hear about that deployment with the 185th coming up? And he's like, yeah man, I'm not planning on going. And I was like, oh man. He's like, wait, are you going? And I was like, yeah, I just volunteered. I'm gonna be going. And it was like, if you ever seen Rick and Morty, where the guy was like, son of a bitch, I'm in. That's pretty much the way that it went. And I was like, all right, cool. And then same thing with the next two guys in line. I called them up. And they were like, I'm in. The third guy, he's like, yeah, I already told him that I wanting to go. And I was like, sweet. And he's like, you going? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, hell yeah. So so I've got a lot of people who are in that cell as like E4s. Those are my E4s that I got to come over, and they're motivated. They're pretty uh, pretty hot on the systems. They're excited to learn about the stuff other than FAD and Sentinel. And then I've got one of them that I'm kind of grooming, or the E5, one of the E5s I'm grooming to go warrant, and then the other three, once they get up to E5, I'm going to start getting them prepared to go put on that bar. So they got a couple more years to go, but I know when I get back from overseas, we're going to have at least one go to candidate school. So it'd be nice to have more than just 2 people in the state as a 140 Alpha.
Amen. That's awesome. Well, congratulations, and it's really cool to be able to get like when the National Guard and Reserve deploys or does a mission. A lot of times there's enough notice that you're able to like call in reinforcements from other places.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's people that like are almost pro deployers for the reserve and the National Guard. They're like, yeah, let me go. I want to do it. Especially in the air defense community with our kind of few missions that we've had recently that have been, kind of quiet but an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You are you are like, I don't even know how to say it. Like one of the last of the Shorad Juliet types, right? I mean, look, you've been doing nothing but that forward area air defense mission. Like no, everybody else left, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
were still doing it, and
Yeah.
that's an interesting thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so back in like the early 2000s, they got rid of all the straight up SHORAD battalions, and then they made it to where there was they took them out of the divisions, and then they started separating them. I don't know what brigades they all went to, but or air defense brigades, but they weren't attached to an actual you know division. And and it was just like one, I think it was like one battery in this composite battalion that was actually SHORAD. And it kind of, they still did their upkeep and everything, but it wasn't, I don't feel like it was as efficient as it was, being part of that mission that you were supporting. And the National Guard, we still stuck with the whole focus on air defense battalion, SHORAD air defense battalion. And we go out to the field every year. Every now and then we do like a quarterly thing where we go out and do link ups. And we were staying on top of it. And then it but one thing that sucks about the whole National Guard thing is like it's a perishable skill. So we'd go out there and we'd only be out there for 2 days a month, maybe one day out of like 3 months to go out there and do integration. So you got to kind of relearn everything. One benefit that I had was on the civilian side, my civilian job. because I wasn't full time military. My civilian job was I was a uh, field service engineer. I worked for Northrop Grumman for a long time, being a FAD FSR. And I would go out and I would train units, active duty National Guard and all different kinds of people with FAD C2. So in my civilian job, I was constantly touching it and constantly learning and practicing all the different ways to link up all the things about FAD and and then yeah, I deployed as a contractor. Like I've been in the army for 24 years, and in the green suit, I really haven't seen anything much other than every state that flew the Confederate flag. But with uh, with the civilian world, I was going to Iraq, Afghanistan, spending time over there with the troops, and you know, had to take a break from the National Guard while I was there because I was over there for about 6 to 8 months per time. And I wish I had the picture queued up because when I was in when I was in Iraq, I let my hair grow out and my beard, and like I didn't do any kind of maintenance, so I look like Zach Galifianakis coming out of there. But like it was, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. And and so when all that constant practice has helped me out because I didn't become stale. I was always on top of the new developments with FAD and how things were. I got to go out and do testing on you know prototypes that never did make it out to the field or anything like that. That I was like, man, this would be really cool if it actually showed up. Um, you know, um, and I took that with me, and it's in my toolbox for whoever needs it. I get calls all the time from various people, whether it be people soldiers in the field or soldiers in garrison that need help with FAD. It's I I don't just get paid to do it. I love doing it for the warfighter and for soldiers because there's some times where you get stuck on something, and if you have somebody there that can talk the lingo, you could have somebody there that's an engineer that you call up, and they haven't spent any time on they haven't spent any time in the system, and they're like, oh, well, it's supposed to do this because it worked in Yuma, and then you got the people who are like, okay, then you got like some of the us who have been down, doing like exercises, who they call up, and then it's more personal for me because I still do it, and I'm still a soldier, and as if I can keep my soldiers alive and or happy or out of a bunch of trouble and get their stuff set up, it makes me feel better that they're feeling better. Like there was one time whenever I was in when I was at Bagram, we would do CRAM mission. CRAM was one of the things that I would mess with too. We would do CRAM missions and shoot down rounds. And what I got in a habit of doing is, we would usually get hit at night, and then the next day I would get on my bicycle and I'd ride down to where that round would have hit, and I'll just sit there and stare at it and be like, man, these guys don't even know that they were that close. And it was the system that I maintain and that your fellow soldiers operate that prevented that thing from landing right in the middle of this area. And like you kind of get a realization about how important CRAM and the counter rocket and artillery mortar mission is, and how much it's when we first moved over to Iraq, Afghanistan at the beginning of the war, people were getting hit all the time. The only thing we really had was just the warning, which helped out a lot. But then once we started getting to the effector portion of it with that CWIS, it made it real to find out how much air defense and those soldiers are in people's lives. And people just they hear the alarms and they go outside and they watch the round blow up in the sky. It's like, dude, you don't even know how close you were. And it's really eye opening and very humbling.
That's really sad in a way when we realize that we're part of like I remember first time I saw that gun on Command and Conquer Red Alert, a video game, and it would shoot this gun down, right? And then all of a sudden we're protecting our bases with that radar, and it's neat to think that tech as technology takes another step forward, we're able to affect things on the battlefield. And as air defenders, right? Air defenders, we almost have completely defensive capability. So we're looking and just trying to protect somebody that's lobbing things our way. Was there a was there a time when you found yourself helping somebody that maybe had been injured, or maybe yourself pulling a trigger or shooting at somebody or doing something that was a war kind of maneuver?
No. Um, like anytime that I've been in an area like a combat zone or a combat theater has always been at a civilian as a civilian, and we um, weren't allowed to carry my people weren't allowed to carry weapons or anything like that. As far as wounded, um, um, not really. I'm trying to think if there was any time that I had where I actually had to help out somebody that was wounded. Um, everything that I had that people were wounded or worse than wounded uh, was um, was back like in garrison, or something like I would see a wreck happen and I'd go out there and we would check on the guy and we'd get him out and he'd be fine. Nothing like that would um, really shock. I think I don't know if I really want to get into it, but like there was one traumatic time I had back when I was in Charlie Battery that wasn't good, and I wasn't able to do anything to help him or anything like that. But that was back when Jamie Buford, during that whole thing, I was his neighbor, and it was a very sad moment, because we went to his room and we tried to help him out, but he was already gone, and it that was probably the roughest time that I've ever had. Whenever going with dealing with you know an injured person or somebody who was passing away or passed away, and but uh, but other than that, I haven't been um, directly like around or involved whenever somebody was injured or anything like that, and I did not have to actually engage um, the somebody else.
Tell me about your guitars. What kind of guitars do you play? I got a Fender Strat, I got a Tele, I got a Gibson J45, I've got a Taylor 316, I got a Lava Me Too. Uh, what all you got?
So I have a few. I got a bunch of them in cases, and I don't want to go on camera, but I've got the most brand. I have this. I actually have one in arm's reach. This was one that I bought in 2000. I keep it by my desk. I had this one during when I was at Bragg. I was in a band called the Welfare Babies, and we were a punk rock band. It was me and then two people from engineering. No, one person from engineer. He played guitar and sang, and then the drummer was from First Brigade Infantry. He ended up passing. He died in Iraq from an IED, and then our bass player was actually General McChrystal's son. So that was really interesting. We go over there to pick him up. He was still like 17 at the time, but we go to pick him up, and it was a bunch of E4s and this like really crappy, Hyundai XL driving up General's Row to go pick up the General's son, and we'd always like wait outside because I was like, I don't want to go in. Just call him up and go. But so that's one of my Ibanez's. And then I have another Ibanez, that's like it's called a micro. It's full scale, but it looks like a kid's guitar. and I like it because it's really light and it's really fun to play. And then and then I have a BC Rich Warlock, just a cheapo version. I have a habit of buying $200 guitars because they sound great, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. And then I have one guitar that is expensive, because I wanted to buy a Gibson, so I went out and actually bought a Gibson Explorer, and I still play that from time to time. But you know, I mainly play my little guy here, and then but I really like playing bass guitar. I have a 5-string acoustic Dean bass, and then I have I have an Ibanez 5-string bass that it's one of those ones like it's like a $200 bass. It sounded great, but I upgraded all the electronics in it, so it sounds amazing. Really good tone. Um, uh, but I played guitar in the Welfare Babies until I got out of the army, and I really didn't do much with anything until 2006 when I went to DC. 2006, 2007. The first time I went to Washington D.C., we had a couple soldiers that played, and I ended up playing with them, and uh, and we called ourselves Building 1906, BLDG 1906, because what had happened was, you know, I was a W1 and those guys were like E4s, and they were maintenance guys. So the BMO came up to me and was like, Dan, you need to police up your guys. I'm like, what guys are you talking about? And then they told me the guys, and I was like, those aren't my guys. I like met them like 2 or 3 times, but they're not my dudes. They're like, well, they like the rock and roll, so they're your guys. And I'm like, all right, well, what's the problem? And they were like, well, they keep on playing in their apartments and they keep getting the cops called on them. So I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty down to earth, so I'm going to go talk to these guys. They sent me to go talk to people because I'm kind of down to earth. And and so I like what they play, but I was like, man, you guys can't play here. Like, well, where are we going to play? And so I called up the BMO and I was like, it's like, hey man, can I get some keys to the shop and the gate at the motor pool? And they're like, he's like, why? It's like, well, if they can't play here, why don't we just take it down to the motor pool and they could play in one of the bays. And so he agreed to it, and we ended up finding an area above where the offices were that was just a storage area, and we'd put all of our gear up there. And I played guitar and did vocals for those guys. We never did go anywhere. It was just something fun to do, and we would play just about every night, every other night, in one of the bays. We just cracked the doors so that airflow would come in, and we just jam out. And it was one of those ones that was far enough away to where you can really crank up the sound and didn't have to worry about anything. I had a lot of fun with that group. It was me, and then there was two wheeled vehicle mechanics that were E4s. One played bass, one played guitar, and then I had an E714 Golf who was one of the platoon sergeants that played drums, and that guy was a monster. That was Jeff Wise,
Uh,
if anybody knows him. I think he's a sergeant major now.
oh wow, that's great. That's great. What do you see, in your future? What's going on? You gonna have a baby tomorrow, I guess,
Yeah. You know, I don't, I don't really know. We got the new girl coming in next week. And then, the next calendar year, going overseas for a year with this aviation brigade. Very motivated about that. And then, but once I get back from that, uh, you know, I, I still have my civilian job, but I'm gonna see what I can do about, trying to find something for my military side. Um, because that year I'll be up to start getting looked at for W5 in 2024. So I'm really interested in trying to find something that I can do with that. 'Cause there's very few places where I can go. So I'm going to try to see what I can find, and if I have to do a rotation somewhere to try to get it, I'll see about doing that. I'm not planning on going active duty army or anything like that to try to get it, but I don't even know if that's possible. But um, I'm just I know that I'm gonna probably stay in the National Guard until they kick me out because now it's just, I mean, once you get past 20, it's just like, all right, there, it's good. You know, you're you're a senior mentor for people, so you know you're trying to find people to replace you and groom them, but still be around in case they need help. Um, so I'm gonna stay in. Plus, the insurance. If you're in the National Guard and you don't have TRICARE Reserve Select, you need to get it now because that is nothing can touch it. Um, but so that's one of the main things. And then you know um, I've got a good civilian job. I was looking at the chat and I saw Kevin McGovern commented that he was here. So yeah, his office is not too far away from mine. Uh, over this past not this past summer, the last summer, I was working really close with him on a few projects, so it was really interesting. Went out to his desk and I saw that he had all the 3480A stuff, and I was like, yes, fellow air defender, freaking Audacia, and and uh, and so I'm probably gonna just figure out what's going on with my civilian job. The last time I got mobilized, I was in one position with the company that I'm in, and then whenever I came back, they put me in another position because the one that I was in was gone, and so I had to relearn everything. But I don't know, when I get back from this next deployment, I may be in the same position, you know, working to support FAD, or I might be doing some other kind of position. But hey, it's one of those sayings, you know, you leave for a year, you kind of take what you can get.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a it's a part of an agreement between your civilian job and your military job to let you serve your country primarily, and they got your back, and they find a place for you where you fit in. Because look, you talked about learning about buttons and jobs before. It's really about getting a competent person. If you get a competent person in your organization, you can put them pretty much anywhere and get
Mm-hmm.
things done. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so let's begin to think about closing this out. I've enjoyed it. I've had a blast. Is
Me
there a
too.
story maybe you haven't told that you'd like to tell? Is there a thought process as we go out of here that maybe, because look, the thought of this is that one day, should you get sick, your story's told, at least part of it. Is there
Mm-hmm.
a message or a thought process that you might give to someone that would look at this one day, that could give a synopsis of Taco Franklin?
um, I'm not really one as a philosopher or anything, so I don't really know how to go through things. But you know, just don't just one thing that I have told people is don't stop learning. You know, even as a warrant, you're seen as a person who's supposed to know everything, but you don't. And there's always going to be somebody who can teach you something that you don't know. It could be somebody who's higher ranked than you, or it could be somebody like fresh out of high school, or even a small kid can teach you a new way of doing something. You know, keep your eyes open and learn from people. You know, try not to cause any ripples or anything like that because, you know, you'll never know when you'll see that person again. Like, yeah, because I mean, I really hope that I didn't cause any, you know, burn any bridges as I was growing up. But, you know, seeing all these people that I haven't, you know, I running into them again and remembering people like, you know, you know, I there's guys I haven't seen for, you know, 20 years, a couple decades. Like I was in the field a couple months ago and then I saw Sergeant Lutz and I was like, holy crap, that's Sergeant Lutz. And then, you know, seeing people that just random people uh, like, people who's went off to other things and then you end up running into them later on and they were all part of your old units. You know, you everything comes around. Air defense is a small community. Network, get to know people, um, learn, learn from them, learn from your peers, your subordinates, and just make yourself better. And then just try not to stress out because you know life's not worth stressing out all the time. That's probably why I'm, still got my hair, because I try not to let a lot of things bother me, and I turn to like different support chains, whether it's coworkers or my family. Um, you know, going into a new job in 2020 or 2021, I was pretty stressed out because I didn't know I didn't know anything about the job that I was going into, and a couple people really helped me out with learning, like Kevin McGovern. He gave me a lot of guidance um, with what I was doing, and it helped me out a lot, and I thank him. For I still have that job, so I thank him, and I think there was a captain that was helping me out. So just turn, like, if you ever feel like you're getting pulled under, and you think that you're near like your limits, don't try to keep it all in. There's no shame in reaching out to your friends and people, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know you need help because of that image they present, but then you ask them for help, and they're all about it. And just as long as you make a continuous effort about trying to get better through their help, it'll pay off in the end. So don't quit. Life's better if you
Don't
just
quit.
work through it. Cheers.
Amen. Amen. Well, hey, cheers. Yeah, it's been great to hang out, man. It has been an absolute blast. I look forward to getting up to Huntsville one day and hanging out up there. Maybe we can have a get together, and that would I would love that. I would
Hell
absolutely
yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I tried to get to that
All
division
right.
reunion, and I couldn't get to it because, or that 3488 reunion. It was my daughter's birthday. I couldn't get there.
Oh yeah, right. It was my granddaughter's birthday that weekend. If it hadn't have been previously planned, like 8 months in advance, I wouldn't have been there. But it was great. It was great. Well, hey, Chief, it's Taco Franklin. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I appreciate it very much. We'll get a little hellfire going as we go out of here.
Hell yeah. Y'all take care. Good to see y'all again.
I cried, I'm coming for you, buddy.
All the way.